All right. If you're listening to this, you're probably gearing up for a train driver interview.
Yeah, big moment.
It is a big moment.
Yeah.
And I know you're probably feeling like a mix of excitement and maybe just a little bit of those pre-interview jitters.
Understandable.
Totally understandable. Well, we're diving deep into RoleCatcher's Train Driver Career Guide today.
We are.
And this is really going to be, I think, some really valuable insights to give you an edge in the interview process.
Definitely not your typical interview advice. We're going really in depth.
Exactly. So to kick things off, let's just paint a picture of what this job actually looks like day to day.
Yeah, a lot of people maybe romanticize this idea of, driving a train.
Yeah.
But it's a very specific blend of skills.
Mm-hmm.
Technical expertise, safety consciousness, and you got to be able to communicate really well.
Absolutely. You are responsible for people's safety, passengers or cargo, right?
It's right.
You're working with a crew. You got to be ready for anything. And the scope section of the career guide really emphasizes the breadth of that responsibility.
It does. Speaking of responsibility, have you thought about kind of weighing the pros and cons? Does this actually align with what you want out of a job?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not all, sunshine and roses.
It's not, no.
But there are some fantastic perks, right? The pay is good, job security. Maybe you'll even get to travel some really interesting routes.
Sure.
But you also have to be comfortable with those irregular hours
Mm-hmm.
and the potential stress.
Yeah.
And you always have to be alert.
You do. That's where those AI tools from RoleCatcher come in handy,
Tell me about those. How do they help with interview prep?
Well, they can analyze the specific requirements that are out there for train driver roles
Okay.
and then help you tailor your answers. So you're not just going in there blind.
So it's targeted advice, not just general interview tips.
Right. And it can even point out skills gaps. Maybe you're missing something.
Oh, that's good to know.
And then it'll give you feedback on how to address it in the interview.
Okay, that's fantastic. I am ready to dive into some of these potential questions.
Me too.
Because some of them are, let's just say, a little intimidating.
Yeah, I know what you mean. How do you handle emergencies while operating a train? That's a tough one.
That's a big one, right?
It's a high-stakes situation,
Hmm.
so you gotta show them you can stay cool under pressure.
Yeah. I mean, what's the best way to approach a question like that?
I think, walk them through your thought process, mention the procedures you'd follow, and that shows that you know what to do.
Right. You've been trained. You've got this. So it's not just about saying I'd stay calm.
Right.
It's about I know exactly what to do step by step.
Right, and be ready for follow-up questions like,
Okay.
can you give me a specific example of an emergency you faced? Maybe not even on a train, just how you handled it.
That's a great point.
Mm.
So you're basically saying highlight those transferable skills,
Ex-
even if you haven't had that specific train driver experience.
Right, and the STAR method is your friend here. Situation, task, action, result. Tell a compelling story.
Yeah, I love the STAR method. And I think RoleCatcher's AI actually helps you practice that.
It does. It'll analyze your answers and give you feedback on how to structure them.
Okay, I'm taking notes.
Good. What about this one? Can you describe a time when you had to make a difficult decision while operating a train? This one's all about your judgment, your commitment to safety, even when things get tough.
Right, so maybe an example where you had to choose safety over speed,
Mm-hmm.
even if it meant delaying the train.
Exactly. Or maybe you had to make a call with limited information.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It is, but choose an example that shows you can make those sound decisions, even when there's no easy answer.
Right.
And again, be ready for those follow-ups.
Well,
What were the consequences? Or what did you learn from it? Stuff like that.
okay, so you've shown them you can handle emergencies. You can make tough decisions. But what about those, let's just say, interesting passengers?
Right.
How do you handle those difficult situations on a train?
This is all about people skills. They want to see that you can stay calm, professional, and de-escalate things
Yeah.
while keeping everyone safe and comfortable.
Right. You are the face of the railway, so you got to be approachable. Even when people are being difficult.
You do?
How do you show that in an interview, though?
I think focus on active listening, clear communication,
Okay.
and staying calm under pressure. Maybe share an example of when you successfully resolved a conflict.
Right, so maybe talk about a time you had to calm down a passenger who was upset.
Exactly.
Or maybe mediate a dispute between passengers.
Yeah.
And then, of course, be ready for the follow-up questions.
Always. Have you ever had to call security? Or how would you keep everyone safe if things escalated? You know, that kind of thing.
Right. So it's all about showing them you don't get rattled easily. You have strategies for de-escalation,
Mm-hmm.
and passenger safety is always your top priority.
Always. And you know what? RoleCatcher's AI can be really helpful with those behavioral questions.
Oh, how so?
It can analyze your answers,
Okay.
identify areas for improvement,
Yeah.
and even suggest like different ways to phrase things so you really hit the mark.
Ooh, like a personalized script doctor. I love it.
That's a great way to put it. Welcome back. We're getting you ready for that train driver interview. And now we're going to shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about the technical stuff.
Yeah, you got to know your stuff. You're operating a pretty complex piece of machinery after all.
Right. And they're going to want to know that you can handle it safely.
Absolutely.
So a question they might throw at you is, can you describe the process of preparing a train for a journey?
Interesting. So it's not just as simple as hopping in and taking off.
No, there's a whole pre-departure checklist.
Okay.
Got to make sure everything's in order. So this is where you show off your attention to detail.
Right. That you understand those safety procedures.
Exactly. Walk them through the steps, pre-departure checks, communication with the staff, you know, the whole 9 yards.
And I bet they'll probably ask about specific checks too, right?
Oh, yeah. Brake tests, signal inspections, all of that.
Okay.
So be ready to explain, like, what's the purpose of each check? How do you actually do it?
Yeah, they want to know you're not just going through the motions. You understand why these checks are important.
Right, because safety is paramount, and that's something you want to emphasize throughout the whole interview.
Right. The career guide makes that very clear.
Yeah.
It's not just about rules, it's a mindset.
It is. So even if they're asking about something like dealing with a difficult passenger,
Yeah.
you can still tie it back to safety, how you're always prioritizing everyone's well-being.
Got it. So let's say they ask about punctuality. Something like, how do you ensure the timely arrival of trains?
Okay, so this is about planning, time management, and being able to anticipate problems. You got to know those train schedules inside and out.
Right. And be prepared for delays.
Exactly. So don't just say, I'd stick to the schedule.
Yeah.
You got to have a plan B and maybe even a plan C.
So talk about knowing the route, monitoring schedules, and being proactive.
Mm-hmm. What if there's a weather delay?
Yeah. Or a mechanical issue. Those things happen.
Right, and they want to know how you'd handle it. So this is where communication comes in. Keep passengers informed, coordinate with the control center.
Right.
Work to minimize the delay, but never compromise safety.
Clear communication is key in those situations.
Absolutely. And that's something RoleCatcher's AI can really help you with.
Oh, how so?
It can look at your answers and suggest ways to bring in those specific examples that show you're a good communicator.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. All right, let's try this one. Can you explain how you operate a train's controls?
Okay, now we're getting into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, the technical heart of the job. They want to see if you know what all those buttons and levers do.
More than just making the train go forward and backward, I imagine.
Right, you got to understand the whole system. So walk them through those basic controls, explain their functions,
Okay.
highlight any special skills you have.
And what about those tricky situations? Starting on an incline, braking in bad weather, things like that.
Oh, yeah. Be ready to explain your approach.
Okay.
Emphasize safety and precision, even if you're drawing on experience from other vehicles.
Right. Or from simulators.
Exactly.
Speaking of experience, I'm curious about career progression. The career guide has a section on train driver, career stages. And it sounds like there's actually a lot of room to grow.
There is. It's not just a dead-end job. You start as a trainee, then move up to junior driver, senior driver, maybe even chief train driver.
Wow.
And each level comes with more responsibility and leadership opportunities.
Okay. And they also mentioned that continuous learning is really important, keeping up with certifications.
Oh, yeah. Certifications are huge. Things like your train driver's license, first aid, hazardous materials training.
Right. But it's not just about the technical stuff.
Nope.
Developing those soft skills is also important. Communication, teamwork, leadership, all of that.
Right. Because remember, you're not just operating a machine. You're working with people.
Absolutely. Passengers, crew members, control center personnel.
Exactly. So you need that tact, diplomacy, and a calm head, especially when things go wrong.
So how do you show off those soft skills in the interview, especially when the questions are so technical?
Think about how you frame your answers. Even if they're asking about a mechanical problem, you can talk about how you communicated it clearly, kept everyone informed, worked as a team.
Right, so you're showing them you understand that human element.
Exactly. And again, RoleCatcher's AI can help you with this. It can look at your answers and suggest ways to bring in those soft skills more naturally.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like having a coach who helps you present yourself as a well-rounded candidate. All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We've been really getting into the nitty-gritty of these train driver interviews, and I feel like we've pulled some really great stuff out of RoleCatcher's career guide so far.
Yeah, we've covered a lot, from the technical stuff to those, people skills that you really need.
Absolutely. But before we wrap things up, is there anything else candidates should keep in mind as they prepare? Like any final tips or strategies?
Well, remember, it's a two-way street. You're not just there to answer their questions.
Right. You're also interviewing them.
Exactly. So have some questions of your own ready to go.
Okay, so what kind of questions should people ask?
Think about things like professional development opportunities. What's their safety culture like? What's it like to work on the team there?
Right, because you want to make sure it's a good fit for you too.
Yeah, and it shows them you've done your research,
Yeah.
that you're really interested.
Okay, that's a great tip. The career guide mentions how the transportation industry is always changing.
It is.
So how can candidates show that they're adaptable, that they're willing to keep learning?
Talk about new technologies, any courses you're taking, certifications you're working towards. Show them you're interested in staying ahead of the curve.
Even if you don't have years of experience in the field, you can still demonstrate that you're ready to learn and grow.
Right. And don't underestimate the power of just being enthusiastic.
Yeah, let that passion shine through.
Exactly. People can tell when you're genuinely excited about something.
And it makes you a more memorable candidate.
It does. Now, before we go, I want to emphasize one more time how helpful those AI tools from RoleCatcher can be.
Yeah, we've talked about it throughout this deep dive, but it's worth repeating.
It is. It can really take your interview prep to the next level.
Okay, so just to recap, it analyzes your answers, gives you feedback, helps you say things in a more impactful way.
Right. And don't forget the video rehearsal tool.
Oh, yeah, like having a personal coach to help with your body language, tone of voice, all that.
It's amazing.
Well, I feel like we've given our listeners a lot to think about today.
I think so, too. We've covered what it's really like to be a train driver, those tricky interview questions, the importance of soft skills, and so much more.
Absolutely. And remember, preparation is key.
It is, but don't stress too much.
No, you've got this. And RoleCatcher is there to support you every step of the way.
Best of luck on your journey to becoming a train driver.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.